This video is brought to you by Nebula. Trump's 10% tariff on UK goods came into effect on Wednesday, with the government now weighing its options to respond. While even this relatively low rate will have negative impacts on the UK economy, there are also some reasons for optimism. For instance, UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves implied in a Financial Times interview this week that the UK could exploit the chaos unleashed by Trump by presenting itself as a place of stability, with rising investment, skilled labour migration, and a potential EU trade deal all being potential benefits. So in this video, we'll discuss the short-term negative impact of Trump's tariffs, and whether they could actually kickstart the UK economy. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. Let's start by discussing what Trump's tariffs could mean for the UK economy. Assuming Trump doesn't U-turn on his flat 10% tariff and higher sectoral tariffs on UK goods imported into the US, there will be short-term negative impacts on the UK economy. This will mostly impact jobs, particularly in industries with big US markets, like car makers, which face a higher 25% tariff on foreign-made cars, machinery, or pharmaceuticals, particularly AstraZeneca and GlaxoSmithKline, which export 40 and 50% of their products to the US respectively. According to the IPPR think tank, some 25,000 jobs in the UK car manufacturing industry could be at risk, particularly from the Jaguar Land Rover and Mini factories near Oxford. There's also the impact of pension funds and investments. You might think the ongoing stock market turmoil only affects rich people, but in reality, if you have a job and a pension, your pension fund is likely to hold assets that will be impacted by Trump's global tariffs. However, financial experts generally warn against withdrawing money suddenly in times of economic uncertainty, as falls in the stock market tend to recover with time. But it's not all bad news. The Bank of England's latest financial stability report, released on Wednesday, stated that despite Trump's tariffs in the UK, market functioning remains orderly, and UK households and corporate borrowers have remained resilient. It also reassuringly suggested that UK banks could support households and businesses even if the economy turned substantially worse than expected. More than that, though, there are actually some other ways that Trump could be good for the UK economy. We've got three main ideas, which we'll get into now. Something the UK has struggled to attract recently is foreign investment. This has been pretty brutal. Having companies invest large sums to expand their operations in your country will usually stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and bolster productivity. But in 2024, the number of foreign direct investments fell to a 12-year low and was about 6% lower than the previous fiscal year. Under previous governments, foreign investors were hesitant to invest in the UK because of high government uncertainty. Brexit was the start of this, with a constant back and forth on EU withdrawal agreements and negotiations. Then the UK rapidly went through several short-term prime ministers, from Theresa May to Rishi Sunak, which didn't help perceptions of instability. So, attracting more foreign investment would be very useful, and as Trump's tariffs cause economic carnage globally, the UK actually looks like a pretty safe place for it. The UK has left the EU, which has a higher 20% tariff rate. Starmer has a huge parliamentary majority and looks stable as Prime Minister, and the UK also has the lowest tariffs of any imposed by Trump. Investors wanting to expand their businesses may look at places like the EU, which was hit with a 20% tariff, now reduced to 10% for 90 days, and wonder whether the UK could be a better choice. With the US's tariffs on the UK being a flat 10% and potentially dropping even lower if Starmer can negotiate a trade deal with the US, there's a good chance investors may start turning to the UK as a safe place for long-term investment. Next up is a rise in skilled labour migration. While we don't yet have concrete data on this, there were some early reports that highly skilled and liberal-leaning workers in finance, law and the arts were considering migrating to the UK following Trump's inauguration. And this trend is likely to continue given other stifling work-related policies, like banning DEI-related and climate change-related terminology. As we covered in a recent TLDR EU video, the share of Americans wanting to permanently move abroad has already been on the rise, with a record number of Americans having applied for UK citizenship in 2024. 6,100 US citizens according to Home Office data, a 26% increase compared to 2023, and the most since records began 20 years ago. While there are various reasons for this, including personal circumstances and the length of time US citizens have lived in the UK, the US political landscape is likely a contributing factor. Furthermore, Trump's crackdown on US universities such as Harvard and Columbia, whose federal funding has been frozen over allegations of anti-Semitism, will probably encourage international students wanting an English language education to apply to UK universities instead, which could then lead to them staying in the UK for work, boosting the economy in the long term. Similarly, Trump's funding cuts to medical and scientific research also risks triggering a mass exodus to other countries, including the UK, boosting research and development. Thirdly, Trump's tariffs could improve the UK-EU relationship. Labour made a reset of the UK's relationship with the EU a key manifesto pledge, and have stressed that they don't want to have to decide between cozying up to the US and the EU. However, it was obvious that they might have to choose at some point, and this week we've said that the global trade war has made it imperative for the UK to improve relations with Europe. She's hoping to use a UK-EU trade summit on the 19th of May to, quote, refresh our relationship and make it easier for businesses to trade. While no UK-EU trade agreement has yet been made, the UK is hoping for closer defence cooperation, removal of barriers to food trade, and mutual recognition of qualifications. The EU has made clear that the UK can't cherry-pick the best bits of EU membership, but given the shifting world order since Trump's inauguration, and now the Liberation Day tariffs, reaching some kind of UK-EU trade agreement seems more urgent. While we can't yet say for sure whether Trump will be good or bad for the UK in the long term, in many ways it does look like the UK could benefit from Trump's mad economic policy. The UK government is yet to decide on a response to Trump's tariffs, with Starmer signalling this week that he's still prepared to sign a trade deal with the US, but only if it's in the national interest. However, the UK hasn't ruled out retaliatory tariffs either, with officials having drawn up a 400-page list of American products that could be taxed if a deal isn't reached. The UK could also try to use conciliatory tactics to get a US trade deal, and is reportedly considering yielding to the White House's demand to reduce the UK's 2% digital services tax, introduced in 2020, which affects US tech giants like Amazon and Meta. But even with Trump's 10% tariff, the other factors we've mentioned could help boost the UK's growth prospects. This story, like much of the news, is worth paying attention to in the weeks ahead, because with geopolitics in flux and Trump throwing the international order up in the air, there's a lot to keep an eye on. Every day we're faced with weird headlines, from Musk declaring anyone who looks at him the wrong way a terrorist, to Trump declaring war on Jupiter to try to regain some extraterrestrial allies. Okay, that one isn't real, but we do dive into the weird world of US politics in our series WTF USA. That's our show where we take big moments from culture and social media and try to explain the political implications of, say, Musk running around trying to put out Tesla fires. Unlike some of our other serious videos, the tone of WTF is more light-hearted and takes something of an irreverent look at what's going on. If you're interested, WTF USA can be found exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is also the home to other incredible original content from your favourite creators, like Tom Nicholas's Boomers. Discussing everything from generational inequality, housing, the climate crisis and pensions, the globe-trotting feature-length documentary tries to unpack the questionable legacy of the baby boomers. If you didn't know, Nebula is an independent, creator-owned streaming platform that specialises in thoughtful content, from creators like Real Life Law, Wendover Productions, Legal Eagle and Neo. It's not just WTF USA either. You can also watch every normal TLDR video on Nebula ad-free, and in some instances before they even land on YouTube. If you're not a member already, click our link in the description to get 40% off. That's just $36 a year or $3 a month. So take the news a little less seriously and check out WTF only on Nebula.